Anyways. Hello, everybody. Anyways, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. I know I'm a couple minutes late. Sorry about that. Got caught up doing some other things. So we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. I do need to step away from the computer for a moment here. There we go. I will be right back though, but I will put some music on while I'm gone here. And again, my YouTube's being a little stingy here, so let me just do this. And of course, when I get back, I will talk about what's on tap for tonight. With that, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See when we get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the best of my ability. So I'll be right back. I'm going to put some music on for you guys while I'm gone. Let's see. Yeah, I need to also do some of this. I do need to just step away for the moment. I'll be right back. Be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, so here's what's on top, and then we're going to get right into this. We got 3 articles we're going to go over, all from Bleeding Fool, including among those Miller targets DC icons as Superman and Batman enter the public domain. Mark Russell's Thanksgiving-focused comic is pure leftist propaganda. I wonder who wrote that one. I'm guessing that was probably an Avi article. And then Rogue sacrifice to stop Galactus. Brilliant twist or lazy writing. We'll find that out. So those 3 articles, plus, of course, the wrestling wrap-up, get caught up on all of last night's action from Raw. Look ahead to tonight's NXT. And, and I think they finalized the card for this Saturday night's main event. So we'll look at that. And, of course, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, all that being said, let me just click back. And, of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, to both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, let's get started. No, not that, Mike. No, you don't want to end the stream now. Let's... Wait, I'm done. La, 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 la. Alrighty then, so here we go. So let's get to this first story. Mark Miller targets DC icons as Superman, Batman enter the public domain. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. Mark Miller targets DC icons as Superman and Batman enter the public domain. Article by Chris Braley, published yesterday. So let's see what's going on here. Comic book writer Mark Miller, best known for creating Kick-Ass and Kingsman, says he plans to write his own versions of Superman and Batman once his characters enter the public domain. That sounds interesting. Wonder where he will... I wonder where, if he'll start from a certain point, if maybe he'll do kind of an alternate timeline, I guess, after 2011, maybe, once 2011 happened, and then he'll do his own kind of timeline on what he believes happens between 2011 and now, or he'll just totally start all over. Many of Millar's comic creations have been adapted into major films, but his next moves will be independent of DC and Warner Brothers. Hollywood and the publishing industry are both facing growing challenges from expiring copyrights on legacy characters. When protection lapses, anyone can legally create new works based on those properties. Recent examples include public domain versions of Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, and Mickey Mouse, which have already inspired horror versions such as Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, and Screamboat. I guess Screamboat might be even more horrific version of Steamboat Willie, the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon that ever was. That's my guess. But if anybody has any other suggestions, feel free to share them with the class, as it were. Anyways, as we continue on with the article here, Superman and Batman are expected to follow in the next decade. In an interview with Wes Doherty of Thinking Critical, Millar confirmed that he intends to take full advantage when Superman enters public domain in 2034. The relevant part of, I guess it's supposed to be but I guess they typo right there. The interview begins around 52:40 into the video embedded below. Quote, It's 8 years in January, Millar said. Quote, I'm going to use 3 artists, and I've put 2 of them under contract already. Will launch in January 2034. Quote, one of the artists needs a long time because he's going to do a 12-issue run, and I'm going to start him in 4 years' time. He's going to get $250,000 up front to draw this thing. Before we get a single cent in, he's under contract already, and I'll start writing it in about 3 years' time, and we'll have it in January 2034. But wow, he's really looking into it. Quote, the other 2 guys I've spoken to informally, but we'll get them under contract in a couple of years too. So I'm totally serious about it, and I'll do Batman the following year, unquote. So kind of like what happened when they originally came out. So Superman came out, and of course, April of 19. Well, the Action Comics #1 went on sale in April of 38. Cover date June of 38, and then Batman basically followed the following spring, and on sale date of March of 39, cover date May of 39. Millar added that he will focus on early Superman antagonists. Quote, the only 2 characters I'm going to use are, in brackets, Lex Luthor and Mr. Mix Yes Bitlick, because they were both created in the first couple of years, so you've got access to them by the end of the second year, unquote. The thing is that, okay, even though it's the same character, his name was slightly different. I think Mix Yes Bitlick is the Silver Age version, and then I think Mix Yet Mix Yet Piltlick is the yeah, try saying that 3 times fast, folks. Was the Golden Age version. Anyways, he also ruled out other well-known villains. Quote, Brainiac, no way. You have to wait 25 more years for Brainiac. Yeah, Brainiac was somebody who didn't come out till the Silver Age. But to be honest, all the other ones you can live without. You don't need Bizarro, you don't need Toyman or Prankster or anything. Luthor is the big one. And otherwise, I'm just going to create lots of new Superman villains. That's my plan. Yeah, Mr. Mix Yes Bitlick is one who you can do a lot with, because the whole impish annex that he brings to the table brings more the comedic side of the adventures. Anyways, we look on here. Get ready to continue on. All right. Millar described his long-term vision in blunt terms. Quote, 2034 to 2039, I'm going to completely exploit all the DC characters with the best artists. I'm going to steal the best artists from Marvel and DC and do the DC characters with them. I just like causing trouble, unquote. Dude, Millar stirring the pot. Ay, 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 ay. I wonder how guys like Chuck Dixon, Mike Barron, Gabe Elteeb, EVS. I wonder how they're all going to react to this. He also revealed that his ambitions extend to film ideas based on public domain adaptations. Quote, I've got an entirely new way of doing Superman, like an entirely new way of doing it, unquote. He said, quote, I've got it all blocked out. Um, I've got the whole thing planned, and I want to do movies of it as well because it'll be public domain. So there's no reason we can't do it at another studio. So yeah, we're going to hit it hard, unquote. Millar's comments highlight a major shift in creative ownership that could reshape both comics and Hollywood. Copyright rules stay on schedule. His Superman series could arrive in less than 9 years, with a Batman title to follow soon after. Yeah, considering, I'm sure that depending upon how I don't know if Millar. Hopefully, Millar is not like super woke or anything like that. But if he's not, that will probably be a breath of fresh air there. Um, if he does these characters, hopefully as they were originally intended. That should be fun to see. So, anyways, now we're gonna get ready to move on to the next article here. And this one, I have a feeling is going to be an Avi article. Just a hunch, just based on the title here. Mark Russell's Thanksgiving-focused comic is pure leftist propaganda. So let's see here. Ding, ding, ding. Mike is right. Mike is right. It's an Avi article. Mark Russell's Thanksgiving-focused comic is pure leftist propaganda. Article by Avi Green, published yesterday, October 27, 2020. There's Thanksgiving. Hey, what is it with those people? Comic Book Club Live posted previews of Ahoy Comics' quote unquote Thanksgiving by leftist Mark Russell. And there's some hints of political, and this is, of course, Avi speaking, of political motivations in this item, not to mention it makes the whole holiday look ugly. The advertising blurb reads like this. So this is from the article. I take it that Avi's referencing. An intense, timely one-shot from Mark Russell, in parentheses here, X Factor and Second Coming, and Marissette Howell, from Howell. Thanksgiving, a day when American families come together until the strain inevitably tears them apart. But for one family, the cruel and deadly secret of turkey neck killer binds them together in the saddest, most shameful way possible. Oh God! If this is another let's bash America story, I don't think it's gonna fly, especially when you're talking about probably what is considered one of the most beloved holidays in after obviously Christmas and 4th of July, Christmas and Halloween. You know, Thanksgiving is steeped in American history. And to tear that apart, if that is what this guy Mark Russell is doing, then he's a jerk. Because we just have to be lectured that sadness is better than happiness, right? And we're back to Avi speaking, of course. This looks worse than a cartoon produced in the past decade or so titled Freebirds, quote unquote, which was a subtle attack on the Thanksgiving holiday. In this comic, which has disturbing illustrations of pilgrims raising knives, while hunting turkeys. It also features the following. And this is what Avi is speaking of. A grandma who writes racist posts on social media. I guess he's on a grandma who writes racist posts on social media. Well, it's clear this is not something meant to celebrate happiness, and that's virtually the problem here. We keep getting lectured propaganda like that. The U.S. was built solely upon racism, and that the country is quote systematically racist. I don't know. I don't know about most of you, but I'm kind of sick of that too. It's stupid. It's a stupid argument. It's a stupid belief. You know, basically perpetrated by people who just want to seem to live in perpetual victimhood. Anyways, continuing on with the article here. Um, and cannot be changed in any way, and plenty of other ghastly forms of exaggerated drivel that don't provide a clear answer whether anything can be improved at all. Oh, this is a short article from Avi. Wow, this is a quickie. And this is a sad state even independent comics have been reduced to. It may be a good thing if leftists like Russell are no longer working for majors, but without a doubt, even these comics from small publishers can have a bad influence. And that's why there is valid reason to worry they will end up giving off all the wrong vibes in some other way or other. Some way or other. Wow, I thought that with an Avi article, I thought that was going to be a bit longer. But I guess he just didn't feel like going off. I mean, he kind of went off on him in a way, but not as in depth as usual for him. So, all right, so we're 2/3 of the way through. So, get to the last article here. I might even, considering how short that I was expecting that article to be longer, but let's see how long this article goes. I might even try to add an article somewhere along the way here. Let's see this last article here, or this article right here. There's actually another Avi article. This one might be longer, but let's see. Rogue sacrifice to stop Galactus. Brilliant twist or lazy writing. Article by Avi Green, published today. There's old buddy Avi again. Let's see what he has to say about this thing. So, superhero hype, Yahoo reports, and this is Avi speaking, that in the pages of quote unquote unbreakable quote unquote unbreakable X-Men, as written by Gail Simone, Rogue appears to have been turned into the latest casualty in the Marvel's continued dispatchings of any character they see fit to put in the graveyard, no matter how meaningless it's become. Even if it's only temporary, that's still no excuse. Now, this is from the article that Avi's referencing here. Powerful as this X-Men team was, they could not hope to stand against Galactus until Rogue, in as a desperate last-ditch effort, tried to drain the power cosmic from the Devourer of Worlds. The end result was Rogue and Galactus seemingly merging, transformed into a giant lifeless statue. But by all appearances, Rogue had saved Dome and the Earth at the cost of her own life. Unfortunately, a cutaway later in Unbreakable X-Men #1 suggests that Rogue's sacrifice may have been futile. The brief scene shows Galactus several years later in a coma on the ocean floor. Apparently, Rogue was successful in draining most of his power, but his physical form manifested elsewhere on Earth. By the issue's end, Galactus appears to be awakening, suggesting his role in the Age of Revelation is not yet concluded. So that's in the article. Now here's Avi's response to what we just read here. And this one's another quickie. So here's Avi's response to this. So Avi, no wonder you're able to do 2 articles this week. They were both quickies, for him anyways. All right, so these modern quote-unquote stories are futile. Even if death's a revolving door in science fiction, parentheses, though it's unclear if quote-unquote civilian casts are always afforded the miracle, on parentheses there. This makes clear the obsession with turning every possible character into a sacrificial lamb for the sake of quote-unquote proving they're capable of knocking off notable characters still stands. Now Simone's doing to Rogue what even Grant Morrison didn't get to do with the Southern Belle Mutant. And it can serve as an example of how Simone really is an overrated scribe herself. Even her Birds of Prey run for DC was overrated and certainly degenerated into a mess pretty fast. This may not even be the first time the X-Men were ever portrayed as fouling up superfluously, and it certainly doesn't do any favors for their publication history. All right, so there we go. There we go. With that, let's see, 27 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look here to see if maybe at least one more article we can get in there before moving on to the wrestling wrap up. Because granted, the first article was the longest of the 3 here. So you see here, maybe in the movie TV streaming or. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think these are all based on movies, not necessarily. Let's see. And nothing new there. Nothing new there either. Oh, here's an article. Here's an article, it looks like. Found something here. Let's take a look at this. In regards to a Looney Tunes article here. I'm bounding. So let's see what's going on here. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right, so as we continue on here, dumped by HBO Max, Looney Tunes is a hit on new home Tubi. Article by J.B. Augustine published earlier today. Now let's see what's going on here. So, the unceremonious removal of Warner Brothers Animation's iconic staple, Looney Tunes, from the HBO Max library was justifiably seen as a mistake by most. Now that plurality of detractors being proven right by the most recent development of Bugs Bunny and his merry band of melodies. They were evicted from the streaming Warner lot, but when free streamer Tubi came knocking, in parentheses, possibly asking, quote unquote, what's up, Doc? On parentheses, the cartoons found a new home, and wouldn't you know it, feathering their nest there like Tweety feathers his cage has become mutually beneficial. Now, mind you, Tubi's not the only one that has, of course, Looney Tunes cartoons. Um, of course, Me TV Tunes. I think even Boomerang has like a lot of the classic Warner Brothers cartoons on. So that's something to keep in mind. Tubi's acquisition head Samuel Horowitz announced in a Vulture piece that HBO Max's loss is their gain, as the Looney Tunes are quote unquote a huge win for the platform. The shorts place in the top 10 best performing series, and more. So these might be the classic shorts. So you can get them on Tubi apparently, MeTV Tunes, Boomerang, number of classic, number of kind of vintage television type channels. You can find these stuff on perform well across generations and demos. So that's from 1996's Space Jam. There. Because of this, Tubi hopes they can hold onto the over 700 shorts now on their service, which are in HD, although out of order. The restorations were done by animation historian Jerry Beck, who is okay with Warner's letting go of their crowning creations. Quote, I am kind of glad, in bracket, the Warner Brothers Discovery took them off HBO Max and allowed other networks to use them so we can all see them, unquote, Beck said. Ideally, Tubi wants to keep the tunes around, quote unquote, for quite a while, likely years, unquote. Negotiations are active and ongoing, with potential for them to be the home of new content, including Coyote versus Acme. However, we'll have to wait and see on that one. The Scuttled film, which was acquired by Catch Up Entertainment, still has to make its release date next year. If it proves bankable, then it could become the cornerstone content for HBO Max for years to come. The last Looney Tunes film to receive a theatrical release was The Day the Earth Blew Up, which finally came out earlier this year. It is available to stream on Max. How long that will last is anyone's guess. Warner's actions the past few years strongly indicate they are happy to ignore and erase their past. Albeit the thing about it is that 36 minutes here. Maybe I'll check a little bit more here. But it is true that some of these, particularly the nostalgia channels, as I said, like Boomerang, like MeTV Tunes, they're actually showing a lot of these cartoons. And Tubi's the latest to get them as well. So, and of course there's streaming sites online. You can go find them too. And then of course some of the Looney Tunes cartoons that are actually in public domain already, particularly the black and white ones, you can also find on YouTube. Some of the pre Bugs Bunny cartoons, some of the earlier Porky Pig cartoons and the like. So, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me check a little bit more here, because I think if they continue to be at short. Yeah, I guess I will. I mean, we got quite a few done. Said like almost 30, almost 30 and a half minutes here. I think I'm going to go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up. As of course, with WWE having their next Saturday night's main event this Saturday, I think some of the final build up for last night's Raw, as last night was the go home Raw before Saturday night, and then tonight, of course, NXT. We'll look at all that. We'll I guess kind of go down the final card of this Saturday, or what is believed to be they made 4 matches in total. There were 3 going into today, and then 1 I think was added, or 3 going into yesterday, and then 1 was added last night. I think 4 in total. And because this is going to be on, I think it's going to be on Peacock or something like that. They're expecting more commercials, so they may only have 4 matches. But anyways, let's go ahead and get ready to take a look. We're going to go back to last night's Monday Night Raw. See how things are set up there. And then look ahead to tonight's NXT, as well as looking ahead to Saturday's Saturday night's main event. So on last night's Monday Night Raw, which came from the Honda Center in California on Netflix with Wade Barrett and Joe Testatori on commentary. The opening match of the evening saw a no contest between Penta and Rusev, who were competing to see who would be the next challenger for Dominic Mysterio and the Intercontinental title. And we'll have a little bit more news in regards to that a little later on. As actually, I might as well just say it, and then we'll go over the full card when we get to that point. But because it ended in no contest, it was signed last night. This is the fourth and believe the final match signed for this Saturday night's main event, as both Penta and Rusev will challenge for the Intercontinental Championship against Dominic Mysterio in a triple threat match. So, setting up for this Saturday fourth match for the Intercontinental title, Penta and Rusev will both challenge Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental title match. Then in a singles match, Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day with Raquel Rodriguez in her corner got the win on WWE legend Nikki Bella in about 11 minutes 20 seconds. Then Braun Breaker defeated LA Knight with, of course, Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman. Now, Paul Heyman had shown off his new version of the Vision stable here, where it's just the Bronze here, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Then after that, in a singles match, JD McDonough with Finn Balor in his corner defeated Sheamus. And in the main event, we saw Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair defend and retain the WWE Women's Tag Team titles over Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. As also getting involved in the match apparently were the Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane, in which there's some talk that maybe these two teams might be facing off in a program in the near future as well. And that's all that happened on last night's Monday Night Raw. So now let's look ahead to tonight's NXT. As, of course, the NXT crew coming off of their of Halloween Havoc pay-per-view from this Saturday night, in which, of course, 3 titles changed hands on the evening. The women's title, the women's North American title, and the NXT Tag Team title all changed hands this past weekend, as we talked about yesterday. So let's now look ahead to tonight's NXT, coming from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, with, of course, I believe Booker T and Vic Joseph will be on commentary. Set for tonight's lineup here on NXT. In the number one contendership final match for the Speed title, determine who will next face El Grande Americano for the WWE Speed title. Axiom, one half of the SmackDown Tag Team Fraxium with Nathan Frazier, will be taking on NXT's Jasper Troy. In a battle of 2 former No Quarter Cash Crew members, Miles Bourne is set to take on Tavian Heights. Tavian Heights coming off of a recent loss to Ethan Page, looks to regain some momentum here. Miles Bourne looking to get things going as well. In a match for the WWE Evolve Women's title, Kendall Gray will defend against NXT's Lash Legend. And then in a match for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship, Kalani Jordan will be defending the TNA Knockouts World title against 3-time former TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordan Grace. It'll be interesting. This one will be interesting to see, because Jordan Grace, of course, is a 3-time former Knockout champion. will we see possibly Blake Monroe, who just recently won the NXT Women's North American title, get involved in that one? We'll have to wait and see for that. So that's all going down on tonight, and of course we'll talk about more. Of course, we'll talk about the results tomorrow night. Now let's look ahead to this Saturday's. Give a rundown of this Saturday night's main event, as I believe. Now there's talk that this is the final match card for the Saturday night's main event. So the Saturday night's main event is coming from the Delta Center, Salt Lake City on Peacock. Signed for the match include, for the WWE Women's title, Tiffany Stratton will be defending the title against Jade Cargill after, of course, Jade's betrayal of Tiffany and subsequent heel turn this past Friday on this past Friday's SmackDown. As I mentioned earlier, a triple threat match has been signed for the WWE Intercontinental titles. Dominic Mysterio will be defending against both Penta and Rusev in this match, the match that was set up on last night's Monday Night Raw. The undisputed WWE title will be on the line as Cody Rhodes is set to defend against Drew McIntyre. These two have had quite a bit of a history together. And in a match to crown a new WWE World Heavyweight title after Seth Rollins was forced to vacate it due to injury, CM Punk will be defending against Jey Uso, in which they had a bit of a promo battle last night, in which many said that CM Punk got the better of it. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. Of course, we'll have the results of tonight's NXT tomorrow. I don't know if there's any more title changes to be looking forward to. Also, tomorrow we'll talk more about what's going to be going down on tomorrow night's Dynamite. So with that, as we're coming up on 48 minutes here, before I move on to this day in each history, I'll give you guys a chance here. In terms of anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling, is there anything you guys want to maybe ask about? Anything you guys want to ask about or talk about real quick here? Before I move on to this day in each history? I'll give you guys a chance here. This is for both, of course, my Rumble and my YouTube viewers, of course. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. All right, well, we just hit the 49-minute mark. So if there's nothing more from you guys, then I will guess I'll start to wrap things up here by getting into this day in each history. Of course, today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. We're just, of course, 3 days away from Halloween. So hopefully, for those of you kids, be safe out there this Friday. Let me just, let's see, 65, 55. $65, 65, 50, in 2010. All right. So with that being said, today is, of course, Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. So let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! And first off, I'm going to head back 75 years ago. As on this date, 75 years ago, back in 1950 here. This date in 1950. This date in 1950. Bob Kimson, let's see. Bob Kimson, Sylvester the Cat cartoon Pop 'em Pop premieres, produced by Warner Brothers Cartoons, which features Sylvester trying to impress his son Sylvester Jr. in his debut appearance by catching a giant mouse, which is actually the kangaroo Hippity Hopper. So now these two start opposite each other, I think, in 2 or 3 cartoons, in which, of course, Sylvester and his son would mistake Hoppity Hopper here, or Hippity Hopper, the kangaroo, as a giant mouse. Of course, they had him in this case having the more rounded ears of a mouse. So yeah. So on this date, 75 years ago today, Warner Brothers cartoon Pop 'em Pop, directed by Bob McKinson. Of course, the voices in the cartoon of Sylvester and Sylvester Jr. being provided by the late great Mel Blanc. Premiered on this date back in 1950, 75 years ago today. All right. So with that being said, we're gonna get ready to move on to the next piece of Nietzsche history here. As we move ahead to the year 1955, which is, of course, 70 years ago today. And on this date, 70 years ago today, from Houston, Ray Gunkel and Wilbur Snyder would defeat Duke Keamuka and Danny Savage to become the new NWA Texas Tag Team Champions. So Ray Gunkel and Wilbur Snyder, of course, who would go on to become the NWA World Champion at some point, and AWA World Champion as well. Actually, I didn't know it would go on to become the AWA World Champion. Sorry, Ray Gunkel and Wilbur Snyder would defeat Duke Keamuka and Danny Savage in Houston to become the new NWA Texas Tag Team Champions on this date 70 years ago, back in 1955. All right, so the next piece in each history, we'll move ahead to the year. We'll move ahead to the year 1965, 60 years ago today. On this date, 60 years ago today, the 155th issue of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan of the Apes went on sale on this date from Gold Key. Now, it started out with Dell. Gold Key would, in the early 60s there, Gold Key would pick up a number of the titles that Dell was publishing at the time and continue the comic adaptations of many licensed properties. The 155th issue of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan of the Apes went on sale on its date back in 1965, 60 years ago. 60 years ago, it went for 12 cents and was 32 pages. So there you go there. And of course, and finally, as we move ahead to the year 2010, which was just 15 years ago today. On this date, 15 years ago today, the Zex anime DC 1 and 2 PSP Reanimated was released on this date back in 2010. So 15 years ago today. DC 1 and 2, that's Da Capo 1 and 2, which is a PlayStation game. This particular OVA was released part of a bundle package. It was released with the video game at the time. So it's part of the packaging deal. So Zex's DC 1 and 2 PSP Reanimated was released on this date back in 2010. All right. So with that, I do thank you guys for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know I was a little late getting started here, but that's all right. We still got in about an hour here. Of course, I'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. And don't forget, this Sunday, I'll be joined by Rick Piper from Cross Comics. He will be continuing our look down Comics History Lane, looking at comics that went on sale, or a comic that went on sale from Timely Comics at the time, what we know of today as Marvel. I believe we'll be looking at Marvel Mystery Comics number 11, with features including the original Human Torch, Namor the Submariner, Elektra, and maybe Angel as well. So just the one book that when it came out that on that date on this date back in or in July of 1940 rather. So and then tomorrow night, of course, as I said, we will get you all caught up on all the latest and Niche news, as well as look back to tonight's NXT, look ahead to tomorrow night's AEW. If there's any further news on Saturday night's main event, any rumors or anything like that, I'll let you guys know. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.